are never going to know where your next deal comes from. So put in the work and do it all, because business will come from the least suspecting places if you put the seeds in the ground and you water them. So spread the seeds out, water them, take care of your people, work hard, be patient. Good things will happen.
What if the next level of your business is not about doing more, but deciding what only you should be doing? Welcome back to Real Estate Leadership Unlocked. I'm Debbie Lariviere with Monterre Coaching, where we work with top performing agents, team leaders, and brokerage leadership to build stronger, more profitable businesses through strategy, systems, leadership, and greater leverage. Today, I am joined by Ben Faber with Compass in Marin County, California. Ben and his team closed more than $80 million in sales last year, and we are going behind the scenes to examine the processes, people, and strategy that support his continually growing business. We talk about how Ben is moving from top producing agent to CEO and what he's learned about delegating without sacrificing the client experience, and why every agent should be asking whether a task truly requires a license. You will also hear about his thoughtful approach to pricing, building lifelong client relationships, and creating a business with value beyond the person at the center of it. This one will challenge you to audit your time, rethink what's on your desk, and start building a better business before simply building a bigger one. Let's get started. Hello, I am excited to welcome Ben Faber with Compass out of Marin County, California. I've had the opportunity to work with Ben and his team, which has really allowed me to appreciate how thoughtfully he approaches the business and how you consistently focus on a better business before a bigger business. That being said, you have a phenomenal business of over 80 million last year in sales. So congratulations there. And today, what I want to do for our listeners is take them behind the scenes of that production and talk more about what's driving your success. More about the people and the processes that you're implementing to support that and what you're building next. So Ben, for those of our listeners who don't know you, would love for you to share a little bit about your career journey and what you've built in Marin, what your business looks like today, and anything else you'd like to share.
Thank you so much, Debbie. It is a privilege to be on your show. I had the honor of coaching under you and learned so much about mindset and how important people and systems are to a long-term successful business, and to think about the real estate practice as a business and a profession rather than just being self-employed. So I was born in San Francisco, raised in Marin County, and went to college, and I think like most people didn't know what I wanted to do. And I came back home, and I remember realizing that I loved being in people's houses. There's nothing more warm and comforting than going to a friend's house or your grandma's house or whoever it is, and you just feel right at home. And I started working on the investment side with fix and flippers and investors who were buying and holding. And I did that for a few years and realized I really wanted to operate my own business. So I got licensed, and I remember I joined this little boutique broker, Frank Howard Allen in Marin County, and I was living at home, and I did 2 deals in 6 months. I think I made like 15 grand. And I was like, there's got to be a better way, right? Like all the coaches are telling you to smile and dial and knock on doors and all these things that I didn't want to do. That doesn't feel authentic to me. I like genuinely connecting with people. And I'm realizing the top agents, you can't find them at the office because that's not where the business is happening. The business is happening out in the field, out in the community with people who are looking to make a move to improve their life. So I'm thinking, I really got to figure a way to get off my computer and get out there and go meet people and shake hands and kiss babies. So after about 6 months, I went out on a lunch date with two loan officers from First Republic Bank in San Francisco. And just right when we sit down and open the menu, one of them says, "So how long you been doing this?" And I said, 6 months. And she's like, "So how do you compete with a Redfin agent?" And I'm like, "A Redfin agent? I think Redfin's like a website. It's like Zillow or something." And she's like, "Well, actually, Redfin's a broker, and their agents are salaried employees paid on customer satisfaction, not commission. And when you buy with them, they give you a commission refund." And I'm like, that sounds like a pretty good deal, but I've never heard of them. I don't see their signs anywhere. It sounds good in theory, but how does it actually function in real time? So I went home, went on my computer, geeked out on redfin.com for hours, and I applied. There was one agent in Marin, and went through a couple interviews and got hired. And I just started connecting with people because Redfin generated customers for me to now talk to. And the most challenging thing as a new agent is, I have my sphere of influence, I have my friends and family. Regardless of how much someone knows me, likes me, trusts me, when you're dealing with multi-million-dollar real estate, like, it doesn't matter if you know them, like them, trust them if they're not experienced. So I went to work for Redfin and I just started working every day as much as I could, meeting as many people as I could. And I built a really solid book of business. I did more transactions than 99% of realtors in the country. And so I got to learn the good, the bad, the ugly. And so I got to apply those skills as a risk mitigator to buyers and sellers. And then in 2020, right before COVID, after a 6-year run at Redfin, which, I have nothing but great things to say about Redfin, I took my practice to Compass, and teams were kind of starting to be all the rage at the time. Didn't know what I was doing, but knew that there's way too many things that happen in real estate for one person to do. And there's way too many things that are high priority and low priority, high skill, low skill. And so instead of building out a team where there's a bunch of sales agents and they're all kind of doing the same thing, I realized that I really needed administrative support, because it doesn't make sense for a seller of a multi-million-dollar house to be paying me what they're paying me, for me to be scheduling an appointment or putting them into the CRM or checking a couple boxes on a form and sending a DocuSign. So I built out an admin team, and I started with one virtual assistant who is an unlicensed administrative assistant. We ended up with 3 virtual assistants, and the market turned. We weren't as busy. One of those VAs was highly skilled, and we decided to retain her. And we ended up hiring her sister about 3 years ago, and she's our full-time transaction coordinator. So we have a little family business. My mom works with me. She is my showing assistant. She's a rock star. And we have Yanni, who is our administrative assistant, and Onifer, who is our transaction coordinator. They're located in the Philippines. They work our hours. They are so loyal and hardworking. And then we have 2 team members who are agents on our team running their own practices, Brooke and Paul, and they're just really good people. And I connected with them not because I'm looking to grow a big team, but because I have, close personal relationships with them. So not looking to grow a big enterprise, trying to keep things lean and mean and figure out how we optimize so I can continue to increase my dollar per hour and give customers, the best home selling experience.
Yeah, and that's something that I know as we were working through building some of these systems with Yanni and Onifer and really dialing in where they can come in and play a part along with and Linda, I mean, absolute rock star, hands down. Like, yes, she's your mom, but she's total rock star. Really dialing in some of those systems and practices and looking at the transaction through the lens of dollar per hour. So as you've been dialing that piece in, walk us through some of those skills that maybe you had on your desk as an agent that you've since working through maximizing the use of the assistants. What are some of those things that you've been able to take off your desk so that you can focus on being the CEO of this company versus touching and feeling everything all the time, which I know is people listening, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't give it up. I have to do it all. But Ben's here to tell you it can be done.
Yeah, I mean, first, let me just say it's not easy, right? And the beauty of this profession is that if you are willing to put in the work and you're committed to, delivering an exceptional experience for the customer and you're looking at ways to innovate and grow, the sky's the limit. And that's what I love about this industry. And everyone needs a place to live. At a certain point, you have to ask yourself, is this the highest and best use of my time? Should I be doing this? Do I need to do this? And one of the easiest things you can ask yourself is this a licensed activity? So, what is a licensed activity? Advising a buyer or seller on a real estate decision, reviewing and analyzing comparative market analysis, disclosures, offer strategy, showings, open houses. What is not a licensed activity? Sending a listing agreement. Now, a professional needs to review and approve the agreement, but an unlicensed professional can prepare the forms and send them for electronic signature. Scheduling appointments, inspections, opening escrow, open houses, tours or showings for buyers, adding customers to the CRM, right? All these things don't require a real estate license. And you have to be willing to let go of something. And so anytime I'm about to do something, I have to ask myself, am I just doing it to do it because it's easier? Or am I going to teach someone to do it for me? So guess what? I can go from working a 12-hour day to a 10-hour day. I can have dinner at 8 o'clock, or 6 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock. I don't have a family yet, but I want to take my kids to the park, right? I want to pick them up from school. Maybe I want to start working with $3 million sellers instead of $2 million sellers, right? So all of these things you have to be thoughtful about to ask yourself. And this is what, you taught me so well, as you said, I am the CEO of a $100 million company. Does the CEO of a $100 million company do this? Or do they assign or delegate to a team member? And I think one of the biggest skills or learning blocks for me is really trying to change my mindset from an agent or a salesperson to a leader. And when I played sports as a young kid, I always loved being the team captain. I always loved, showing them hard work by example. And, I found that when you get into real estate and your career takes off, it's so hard to break into the business to get to the point where I'm at today, that there's a fear of, I can't stop or I have to do it myself. But there's something incredible about when you can have other people help you accomplish your goals. And one thing that I really want to focus on myself is actually giving someone else a better life, right? if they're going to help my life be better by increasing my business or improving my lifestyle, I want to be able to give them a place where they feel like they have a second home and they can have a career, not just a job, by staying at this company for, the foreseeable future.
Well, now I want to spotlight a few of the other systems that you really leaned in and implemented. Just taking the different processes. What you're describing is looking at those different items on a checklist, right? And we say, okay, we can hand these off, but what does that system look like? And so, kudos to the Compass Tech platform, where you've been able to go in and take it from checklist to assignability. And so really leaning in on what are those buy when dates, what order does it happen in, what are the email templates that go out, created a QR code for your open houses where they can register to receive your newsletter, or off market properties, 2 different QR codes that funnel right to your virtual assistants. They get it in, they put all the data, they do the research on the prospective client, make sure that they're set up for those different opportunities that they're looking to receive. And I think so often we get stuck in the checklist piece of it instead of the automation piece of it. When I say the word automation, most agents automatically in their mind imagine an email drip campaign. When we say automation, we look at the delegation creating durability in the business that somebody else is leading. And that's the piece that I look at. You took the time to invest in the business. And yes, it does take time to say, okay, when I leave a listing appointment, they have access to the link with the CMA with a templated email that goes over all the things that we talked about and next steps, that you give them the few little details and they push it out. So again, it's like you're doing the hard work in market trends, stats, pricing, all of those pieces, like you said, that a licensed individual needs to make sure that they're in charge of, and handing that over so that your seller's now not waiting 24, 48 hours because we have showings all the next day to get the response from you that they're waiting on. And so those are just a few things I think of when we look at your business and what you've been able to automate, is that like really setting up what needs to be set up and then inspecting it. But outside of inspecting it, it's on them. It's on them to win.
It's interesting how long I ran this business in my head. And I think running anything in your head it's not a business. So I think things just became so natural to me and I could do it in my sleep, which also meant that I wasn't having other people do things, or I was asking them to do the same thing and store it in their head, which that's not a good solution, right? That, what do they say? They say any system is good. Any system works, nothing doesn't. So the Compass app is a great platform where they have the CRM, they have a business tracker, pipeline management, and timeline templates for transactions, marketing, compliance for your documents, commission, all under collections for buyers. All of that's under one roof. And instead of, trying to reinvent the wheel and go outside to, I don't know, Follow Up Boss or Salesforce or, a Google Sheet, we just built out, these timeline templates with the Compass tools. And so once you create a business tracker transaction for the buyer or seller, then you can target a checklist of however many items comes up. And then there's a date and there's an assignee. So that way, not only can we see all of that, but the customer can see everything that we're doing. And I know that the National Association of Realtors came out, I think, a couple years ago when there was that settlement and was really trying to, show value. And they put together a list of 100 or 150 things your realtor does. And, that's great. I mean, we can all download that and share it. But for a seller to see or a buyer to see in real time, like, these are the next steps of the transaction. This is what my broker is doing behind the scenes. Not only is that just really cool if you're the customer, but you also get in front of communication and questions that could come up during that life cycle.
Yeah, and they usually show up on Sunday night at 7 PM when you sit down to watch your favorite football game, right? It's like that's when everyone else is sitting on the couch. They're like, "Oh, let me reach out to Ben during the halftime show and find out why I didn't get feedback on a showing."
Right,
Instead,
exactly.
your assistants already put that in there. They could click, and there it is. What I find interesting, and I hear this often because a lot of agents, a lot of successful agents out there have built their business on that relationship business, repeat customers, past clients, even the open houses out there shaking hands, kissing babies, doing those types of activities. They also have a fear around handing off that client or saying my assistant's going to be connecting with you, or you'll receive correspondence from my executive assistant. How have you been able to transition or make that handoff? Does all of your correspondence come from you and they're answering for you, or do you introduce your team? What does that look like for a relationship business at this level and at multi-million dollar properties?
Yeah. So when we send a follow up email after a consultation, it includes a meet the team, and it talks about who are, our admin staff, like Yanni and Onifer, who they won't meet in person, and how integral they are to just, streamlining the administrative side for them. Um, but yeah, it really just comes down to if it's a question that needs to be answered at a high level, like I'm there, I'm plugged in 24/7, right? But if it's something that I don't need to be the one to answer to, um, then I'm definitely going to delegate that to them, right? You think about an attorney with a paralegal, or a surgeon with a assistant, or a dentist office with a receptionist. Um, it's it should be a common practice. And one of the best books, I think, in uh, the real estate industry for the broker side is The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller, the Red Book. And I'm consistently like opening that book up, even though I know like the back of my hand, just always trying to glean a little more from it. And Gary says, you lead with admin. And when you're capped with admin, then you hire a sales agent. And what so much of us do when we're running a team is we hire sales agents and we don't have the admin staff. And so that means that we are also the admin. So I don't have this down to a T, right? But that's how you really want to be thinking about this business, so you get what's called leverage. So if I can figure out a way to free up 1 or 2 or 3 hours during the day, and I can meet someone who is a future lifelong client, that's a better use of my time than sitting at my desk for that amount of time, sending calendar invites or disclosure requests or whatever needs to get done that day. So it's really important. I just told Debbie we're actually going to hire another virtual assistant, a third, who is going to be our marketing assistant, and they're just going to do our marketing. And so I will give them the content for our newsletter and social media and blogs and all that kind of stuff. But that's what we need more help with than me needing another sales agent to help me with the business. I have to figure out a way to save more time so I can do more sales. And then once I'm maxed at sales, then we'll hire another sales agent.
Right. And that allows for that personal experience to come into play too, because then you are the face of their transaction. They call you and they say, "Hey, I've got this um, home I want to purchase, or this friend I want to refer you to, or my son or daughter's purchasing their first home," and they're still getting you. And then tying in that introduction, whether you use Linda for some of the showings or not. But again, it is that really maximizing profit and cost of sale when you refer to the Red Book, because the assistants, yes, I know they come with a salary cost or an hourly rate, but at the same time, your commission can be variable because you can go then chase higher dollar homes, higher average sales price. I know that's one thing we've looked at, said, how do we continue to elevate the average sales price? Because the assistants are still going to cost a similar amount of money, right? And you can increase your commissions versus saying, hey, I'm going to give you half of my leads, and then I'm only going to get back a percentage of that commission dollar that I would have earned if I'd have just hired an assistant to help me out with all this back end stuff on the computer. So yeah, it is about ultimately, and I love what you're saying, it's ultimately about profit. And anyone out there listening that says, "Oh, it's really about the selling of homes," no, you're in this role because you want to make money, and it's not greed. It's time, dollar per hour, and it's time on task, and it's where you're the expert. So let someone else be the expert of all of the paperwork, the behind the scenes, client communication, marketing, and you go just really win at whatever production goals that you have, for sure.
Yeah, well
Um,
said. I think the consumer deserves the expert for their licensed advice, right? It's all about advisory or consultancy. And
mhm.
so that's where you're really getting your value out of your agent. So I think I think we all need to focus on having the highest level conversations we can.
Well, and in today's market, value is one of those areas that we as real estate agents are constantly having to prove, right? As especially in a market for you, for example, where average sales price is definitely upwards above $1 million, right? So I'm sure there's some listeners who are like, man, I wish my average sales price was 1.4, 1.5 million. Either way, when you start layering in those pieces, I think I want to transition to one of your greatest strengths is pricing. And you mentioned a word, like you geeked out on it and learned all you could about Redfin. You study the Red Book and really learn and interpret the processes to get to the next level. And one thing I can say about you is just in your videos, in your email newsletters, your YouTube, where you digest the market and say, what does this mean to me? Pricing is one of your greatest strengths. And so how has that helped you generate more business with sellers making confident decisions, you gaining listings at a sellable price? I know that's something we're all battling with. They want to sell their home for, $2 million more than it's worth, especially in a shifting market.
Yeah. So, pricing is it's an art, not a science. And some sellers follow your advice to a T, and other sellers want you to follow their instructions. And that's fine. I'm here to help however I can. The data doesn't lie, right? The data doesn't have emotions. The data is not gray. It's black and white. And if you listen to the market, you get a good result, meaning you sell for the highest possible price in the least amount of time. And then you get icing on the cake, which is you get to sell your home with the least amount of stress. When you don't listen to the market, you generally don't get offers and your house sits on the market. And then you start to question, did I hire the right agent? What is my agent doing to market my house? Why isn't he doing, a social media post every day? Why isn't he not knocking all my neighbors' doors, handing out a flyer or a postcard? The beauty of the residential real estate market in the United States is the multiple listing service. It is the most open, transparent market, I think, of potentially any market in the world. And when IDX started, which is Internet Data Exchange, and sellers and brokers could publicly market their listings from the MLS to public facing websites like Zillow, Redfin, homes.com, etc., you gave power to the consumers. You gave them information where they didn't need a broker anymore to have access to this information. So everyone knows your house is available for sale when it's on the MLS. Of course, you want the best photos and a floor plan and a video. But if your house isn't selling, it's normally because of the price or the marketing. And if your house looks great online and it's staged and the photos are good and there's a fun video and it's been on the market for a month, even if you think that's the right price, the market is telling you otherwise. Because in most, if not all markets around our country, if a house is priced reasonably or fair, the seller will receive an acceptable offer within the first week or two on the market. And that is like a universal concept. And if a house hasn't sold after 30 days, maybe there's some markets where you need to wait more than 30 days, but a lot of markets, that data means that the market thinks your house is overpriced. And so being able to show the data to sellers to see, look, you want this result of accepting an offer in a week or two and selling at this price. And you may think selling your house faster is not good because you underpriced it. But in our market, we really don't have such a thing as underpricing. When you underprice a house, it sells for more. We just had a property, not our listing, but I was on the MLS looking at the hot sheet this morning. House was listed for 2.35 million. Seller received 7 offers. It sold for 3.5 million. Right now, that's one example. That's a little bit of an outlier, but there are repeated instances of getting more than the listing price if you are properly priced from the beginning. So, not only when you get that signed agreement, but before you go on the MLS, the day before you go on the MLS, prepare an updated CMA, see what's going on in the market, go out and preview those listings that are active or in contract. If you can get any information on what they're in contract for or the number of offers. And then even better is hop in the car with the seller and go look at these houses or have them go to the open houses, the weeks leading up to going live so they can really understand the market. Because if you can get the seller to understand the market, it's going to be a much smoother process.
Yeah, I love that idea. Even in these markets where we have several agents that are working at that, 10 and $20 million property, go see those properties. Even if the listing agent needs to be present, go with your current agent and take a look at those properties. Because like you said, that even that going from 2 million to 3 million because of buyer demand, they know what they can get for 3 million, right? And so for your seller to then price accordingly based on what else they're seeing, but also know above and below. I think we often look at it and say, are we being aggressive in the market or pricing correctly? And then what's the buyer demand? We are seeing a lot of that. You think it's a great listing and then you get no showings, right? And so the natural tendency is to say, are we overpriced? Well, I think we have to look at a couple of things. One being days on market for your specific area and any outlying issues that may be happening or things going on in your area. However, at the same time, the buyers determine the price at some level. And so our sellers need to be aware of what else those buyers are seeing, not just in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, there was a listing in Tiburon in Marin that was just listed for $12 million. And I think it went, into contract within 3 days. And I mean, there's a market for everything.
Absolutely. Shifting gears a little bit, as you continue to grow your business, I know you're big into learning, coaching, researching. As it continues to grow, how do you continue to focus on recognizing gaps in your business and remaining open for refinement to decide what improvement needs to be made next? I know you mentioned that bringing on that licensed executive assistant. and really establishing a winning job description for that role and what that person will do. How do you continue to focus on that to recognize some of the gaps in your own business? Because we're all doing business perfectly, right?
Not at all. So I think the easiest thing is to audit your time, right? Look how you're spending your time, and where do you really want to be spending it, right? I mean, there might be a day in the near future where I say, you know what, I don't want to be, in my car every day. I don't want to be, holding open houses every Sunday or every Saturday and Sunday. I don't want to have these, uh customer service transaction calls, and I really want to be like a leader or a business owner, and I need to delegate those sales activity to someone else so I can spend more time thinking about, how to grow the business. At the end of the day, it's all about the customer and doing the right thing for the customer and the customer experience. I want to be the customer's best option. And if I'm not, I have some changes to make, right? And we have changes to make. And then it's coming up with a plan of what are those changes and how do we want to execute. When you are the salesman and you are the business owner, they're kind of conflicting activities, right? Which is why businesses have a sales team and a marketing team and an admin team and an HR team and a PR team. So
Yeah.
it's something I think about, on a daily basis. And what I know is whatever I'm building, I want it to have asset value. I want my business to be like a piece of real estate that you could buy as an investment. So, an investor, they're looking at a multifamily piece of real estate or a commercial triple net lease, and they see how much income that's generated from that asset. I want investors to be able to look at my business and say, with or without Ben, that business is going to do X amount of money. And that's the framework from how I want to think about growth. I love the business. I love working. I love building. I'm very young. I have no interest in selling. I have no interest in, taking a sailboat around the world. I like my routine. Uh, but I know that I don't want to be a realtor who has been doing this for, I'm 38. I've been doing it for 14 years. So almost 40. So say I do it another 30 years. That's like, 45 years. I don't want to be doing the same thing I'm doing now 30 years from now. Doesn't matter how many people I've served, doesn't matter how much money I've made. That's not the life that I want to have. So, you just got to think about it. And the hardest part is finding the time to take that next step and go from 80 million to 100 million, 120 million. And I could hire someone to help me with that growth, maybe as like a consultant who has a proven track record. I could hire someone to, really like run the business and I could focus on sales. But I think I'm actually more interested in being that person and bringing someone else in to support me or run the sales division so I can really be the visionary.
Yeah. And that's a really important point because, in Traction or Rocket Fuel, written by Gino Wickman, both of those, they talk about the visionary and the integrator and really assessing who you, the listener, are. Ben, I know you're a visionary. And then who is that integrator to come in and put those pieces together. And right now you're utilizing your current virtual assistants as integrators to take that business to the next level. It sounds like the next plan is to add that licensed assistant in there as an additional integrator, and continuing to layer you with integrators, even as you add agents that would add additional production to the team, having that really that diaphragm or that umbrella of people, so that then you're not constantly having to have strategic meetings with 9 people across the plane of the business, and it's having that 1 or 2 point people that help you continue to grow the business. So it is very much a strategy, and oftentimes we as real estate agents, it's like shooting from the hip and we're running as fast as we can, and we get really busy and then we get really slow. It's that roller coaster versus taking the time for the strategy. So my encouragement to all of our listeners is to get through this season, right? If you're in a busy season when you're listening to this, and then when you hit a little bit of a lull in your season from just production, take the time, carve out the time, even if it's a Saturday morning for 4 hours, and really audit the business. You can use AI to audit your business, but audit your business and figure out where you can lean in, give leverage, create processes, and do those so that, again, like you are doing, Ben, be the CEO of your $100 million company. All right, before we go, any last parting words that you would like to share, or strategies that you would like to share with our listeners?
I think I'd like to share that you have really helped me think strategically about the business, about the importance, once again, on the systems and the people. And, there's no shortcut to hard work. So you can't delegate a relationship, right? You got to put in the sweat equity to listen to people, to learn about them and their family. What is their current dissatisfaction with their current living situation, and be someone who they want to work with for the rest of their life. Because Redfin was a great way for me to meet people. There were a lot of people I met who ended up working with someone else, and there were a lot of people I met who ended up working with me. And those are really great relationships to this day. And now those friends and family in that sphere of influence that, liked me and knew me and trusted me when I was a little kid, but didn't want to work with me when I had no transactional experience. Well, now I'm one of the top agents in the county, in the Bay Area, in the country. So guess what? Now, not only do I have a relationship with them, which I've always had, but I get the privilege and the opportunity to be their real estate advisor. And the last thing I'm going to say is, you are never going to know where your next deal comes from. So put in the work and do it all, because business will come from the least suspecting places if you put the seeds in the ground and you water them. But if you never plant the seeds, nothing can grow. And if you plant the seeds and you don't water them, the plants are going to die. So spread the seeds out, water them, take care of your people, work hard, be patient. Good things will happen.
I love it. That's the lifetime value of the real estate client and business, such that you're building something that's a legacy, for sure. Well, thank you, Ben, so much for being here. We really appreciate the wisdom that you shared. If you would like to connect with Ben, we will have his contact information in the show notes. So check those out. Reach out to Ben. Use him for all your Marin County, California referrals. He'd love to meet you, and we look forward to chatting with you next time.
Thank you so much, Debbie.